guys, on this video we're going to be showing you how to do a GFRC glass fiber reinforced concrete countertop. So this countertop is only 3/4 of an inch thick, but we gave it a turn down edge to make it look like it was a 2-inch thick slab. And we have a nice matte finish on there. This is all precast, meaning it's done upside down. So stay tuned and we're going to show you exactly how to do a countertop just like this. What we're going to be doing here is a precast GFRC concrete countertop. I've already got a lot of the prep work done as far as the forms, everything ripped and cut and ready to be glued together. So here's our template. So this is basically called Luan or 1/4 inch plywood. And so I went out to the actual job and I took hot glue and I cut these to fit. So this goes all the way down up against the cabinet here. This is the back of the wall. In the back of the wall, there's an angle right here in this. And this goes down, and our sink that we did will be connecting to this. This is the actual dimensions perfectly outlined of the cabinet that it will sit on top of. What the contractor wanted to do is have 1.25 inch overhang. Now, when I made this template, this is extremely important. If you notice, I have all my notes on here. Right side, left side, back left, top of the wall, back right. So I know that that's the top of my countertop, right? Well, if you think about this, here is what I have so far. This is precast. So this top will actually be flipped over, and that will be the top that you see there on the bottom. So what I had to do is I had to flip this over because now the top is going to be the bottom. So I'm going to just kind of set this in here like this for a second. What I did last night is I took this and I put this down, I held it in place, and I scored around the outside 3 edges with a pencil. Then what I did is I pulled 1.25 inch measurement off of all of these because we want 1.25 inch overhang over top, but we also want a 2-inch turn down edge right here. So this is going to be 1.25 inch thick here around the edges, the perimeter edges out here, and this is going to be 2 inches, so it kind of hides any gap underneath the bottom. And what I did is I ripped all this melamine at 1.25 inches. You can see my pencil marks right here where I just moved it, and I was very methodical about this so everything lines up nice. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is, you see all these little pieces behind it back there. I'm going to line all this stuff up right on top of that pencil mark right there, and then I'm going to actually take hot glue and I'm going to put hot glue on the bottom here and on this side, and I'm going to glue this together to hold that all the way around. And so that's basically our mold here. You see this little piece that goes up right here? This is going to be 1.25 inch thick, but this face has got to be 2 inches. Well, with GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete, it needs to be a minimum of 3/4 inches thick. So I'm going to make this turn up right here. Basically, it's going to go over and then up, and this will be 3/4 inches thick from here to here, but it'll also be 2 inches thick on the face and make it look like a true 2-inch countertop. But we don't have to do that with GFRC, just to help cut down on the weight. So we got our countertop formed. If you see how sturdy this is right here, cut these pieces right here. This would kind of be like your stake or kicker, and all I'm doing is taking hot glue gun and gluing the bottom and the face, press up against there. And you wouldn't think so, but that actually holds really, really good. So I'm going to clean this really good. I'm going to run some silicone around the edges, and then tomorrow we'll be ready to pull that silicone off of there, put some wax down, and we'll be ready for concrete. Last night about 11 o'clock, I ran some silicone around this front edge, since we'll be flipping this over, and this will basically be our rolled edge right here, just so it's not so sharp and we don't have to do so much sanding. And I kind of messed up. What I typically do is I take this glass cleaner. When I put the silicone, I run a bead all the way around where I want the silicone to be at, and then I spray this glass cleaner over top of it. For all you concrete guys, this is basically your edge when you're doing precast. And when you do that, when you separate, you run this down through here really hard, and when it pushes it in that corner. But what happens is it keeps this from sticking. So it's a great tip to do. I did not do that. Like I said, we had people over, it was late, and I was trying to get this done and just forgot to do it. But if you do not do that, what I would recommend is you put plenty of silicone on there and you get a thick bead like this. So if you use enough silicone and put it on thick enough, typically it'll peel right off. If you go really thin, then it doesn't want to peel off as good, and you got to take a razor and scrape it off, which I had to do over here because I didn't put it thick enough. So just that's just a good tip to know. Put your silicone down. I like to use black so you can see it. That's what most people do. And then spray this over top of that bead of silicone before you use your radius tool. So our next step, now that this is clean, silicone's done, everything has been wiped down, cleaned really good, we're gonna put 2 or 3 coats of finishing paste on there. So melamine actually has a slight texture. It's very subtle and it's hard to even tell, but this kind of fills that in and it makes for a smoother finish. So I've already done this side. This is really simple to do. I just dip my rag in there and rub it around, and I basically just keep working it in. You can kind of see, I don't know if the sheen is good from over there, but basically you're just gonna just keep rubbing this stuff in here until it's dry. It's as simple as that. We'll let that dry after I finish this first coat, and we'll probably do it again, see how it looks, maybe a third time, and then we'll be ready for our concrete. All right, so our countertop's ready to go. We got our mold release sprayed on there. Brittany is mixing up our face coat. So that's literally very similar to a micro topping, where that's cement, this is the polymer, and there's very fine sands in there. So that's almost like the buttery cream that you get in concrete on the top layer. We will be putting that down first. You can dump it in there as long as you don't go more than 1/4 inch, or you can spray it out of a hopper. We're gonna just dump it in there and use chip brushes and pull it up that tall face. Camber, big helper out here, putting it down, learning how to do GFRC. So what we'll do is we'll put this, Brittany's finished mixing that up. That consistency looks pretty good. We had to add a little bit more modifier. And this is our, this was our open garage we closed in. This is gonna be our office area when we get time to finish it. But anyways, here's our mold. We sprayed it with the release agent, so it is ready to go. All right, we got our face coat put in here. We decided not to get the air compressor and hopper gun out and spray this because it was only a 2-inch turn down edge. And this is the only other side here that you're gonna see. So you'll see this side and then that face, the rest will be up against walls and cabinets. We just dumped this in here and spread it around with our hands, got it between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch. And we used a chip brush. That's why it's all brushed like that, but you basically just brush it in with a chip brush. Our next coat is going to be the backer coat. So we're letting this set up just a little bit to where it's a little bit more firm than that. We're gonna mix up that backer coat and put it on top. All right, Brittany is mixing up our backer coat. This is basically the GFRC mix. You can see all the fibers in that. That goes on top of the face coat. Here's the bag right here. So that face coat's got to set up just enough to where it starts to firm up, but you don't want to get it too hard. Definitely don't want to put in when the face coat is still wet to where it just mushes through. So there's kind of a fine line there that you got to try and find before you put this on. By the time this is mixed up, I'll wait 5 minutes for material to fall set, so that way all the Portland cement absorbs all the modifier. So there's no water used in this mix. It's basically just this polymer right here instead of water, and you mix it up into that in place of water. So far, so good. We got the face coat, we got our backer coat in there, we got our scrim in there. We put a little bit more backer coat on top of the scrim, and then you can see how we turn these edges. They're thicker all the way around. As it sets up, I'll take a trowel and get as close to 3/4 of an inch, which this is our 3/4 inch little piece right here that we had. Go all the way across there. If it's, I would rather it be a little bit wider and I can cut it with a grinder. And if you can tell, this top is higher right here than the form. And tomorrow it's much easier to leave that higher and then take a grinder and grind that flush all the way around. And that way it sits flat right on top of the cabinets. It's easier to do that than to try and make it perfect with a trowel. Okay guys, it's been just over 24 hours since we poured this last night. So what we're gonna do is, if you notice, I talked about leaving this high. And so you can see the top of our melamine right here, or right here. This is what we need to get this concrete flush to. It's easier if you leave it high, and then you can grind this and use this melamine as your height. So you can just grind it flush to the top of this melamine all the way around here. So you can see what I was talking about, leaving this melamine on here. So that gave me a guide to run my grinder around and make this top level of concrete right here flat and flush. Because once again, this is precast, so we're gonna flip this over. And the contractor wanted the countertop to stick up 1.25 inches. Well, you only have to go 3/4 of an inch with GFRC. So what we did is 3/4 in here, and then we went up to 1.25 inches around the edges. So all this will sit on the outside perimeter of the countertop. And this is our 2-inch turn down edge right here. Our next step is I have to pop a line and make sure, I'm gonna have to score a little bit of this, but we have to make sure that we have clearance here from inside of our melamine, which we do not. It's almost right here is actually good. So you can see the melamine, you can see we have a little bit of play. We do not here in the middle, which means this is too thick, and we do not down here on this edge, which means I'm gonna have to cut a little bit of this wide part off with a grinder. And we wanna make sure that this fits inside of here with a little bit of play. And so I'm gonna basically pop a line across here, 3/4 of an inch out, and I'm gonna score that with a 4-inch grinder, and then we're gonna make that nice and clean, and we'll be ready to demold this thing. All right, so Brittany and I measured over 3/4 of an inch here. We know this is 3/4 of an inch thick, as well as this edge. We popped a line. I cut it with a 4-inch grinder, like this, straight down, and then cut underneath it. And that basically made it to where it was exactly 3/4 of an inch thick. Just a little bit here doesn't matter as long as we're below 1.25 inches, because this is where the countertop's gonna sit. So none of this is gonna be seen or visible as long as it's lower than this 1.25 inches. I tried to clean the area the best I could. Now you see how well our forms held by just that hot glue, but look how easy they come off of there. Literally that easy. And so we'll pop that off all the way around. We'll take the molds off, and then we're gonna get ready to flip this over. So far, it looks pretty good. And we'll take this face off very carefully. Come on, baby. There's our face. Got a few pinholes we'll have to fill in, but really looks pretty good. Alright guys, so we got our countertop shifted down. We always want to set this up on styrofoam so it airs out and it gets air flowing underneath it. So we are going to go ahead and flip this baby over. This is the first time we'll see the top. Oh, look at that clearance up there, dude. Literally like a 1/16 of an inch. Alright, lay it out to where it's going to land on that. Just like the other side. Now down here. Yep. And there's our top. We got some pinholes, which is normal. We got a little bit of grouting to do. We'll use the same face coat that we put down on the first part of the process, and we'll grout all this. And then tomorrow we'll sand it off, and it should be ready for sealer. So we got this guy flipped over. It looks really nice. We have some pinholes and bug holes, which is normal with GFRC. So our next coat is we're actually going to take some stuff called super blue. It's basically an environmental friendly acid. I really like this stuff. We use it a lot. So I'm going to pre-dampen this. And the reason we're doing this is we want to get off, you see how that kind of repels water? So remember we had wax on our mold, and then we also sprayed that foam release. So we want to make sure to get all of that stuff off of there and we also want to open the pores a little bit. But the reason we're doing this, for one, is we've got to grout this with our face coat, and we want to make sure we don't have anything repelling that. You see how it almost seems like it's sealed? So we want to get that off of there. We want to open up the pores. And now what I'm going to do is just dip this stiff brush in here, and I'm going to scrub this around, and you'll see it start to kind of fizz up a little bit. So that's basically opening the pores up. Now this is a heavily diluted, because we poured this yesterday. So if you use muriatic acid, I would be very careful if you do this the next day. You may start with something like 15 to 1, then maybe go down like 10 to 1. You do not want to burn this, and you don't want to etch down too far into the sand. So we're just going to scrub this on here, let it sit a minute, wash it off with water, and we'll be ready to grout this thing. We're going to fill all these little pinholes in. So you can see right here what I've done. I've basically taken our face coat, which was the first cement-based product that we put down, and this is what you see here. So I just mixed more of this up so it's the same color or very close in color, and I'm gonna just rub this in with my hand, fill all those little pinholes in, and then we'll show you what we do once we get this filled in all the way. Because you could use it like a grout trowel and smear this off. What works really nice actually is just styrofoam. It's flat, it's somewhat flexible, and basically what you do is just use circles, and it's gonna press it into those pinholes. And I'll keep doing that here for just a few minutes, and then in the morning we'll lightly sand this off of here. We wanna let this dry overnight so it gets plenty hard enough, and we'll sand the whole top with a 200 grit sandpaper, probably wet. And so I'm going to rub this in, smear it in really nice, and then tomorrow we'll get it sanded. It's been about 24 hours since we grouted the top with the face coat. And you typically don't have to wait that long, but we just had other stuff we were working on today. So I just got back to the house, and I've got 220 grit sandpaper, and I've got a 1x4 here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this around this, and I'm going to sand using this 1x4 to keep it flat. So that way, I'm afraid if I just use my fingers, I'll go back down into those pits. Okay guys, so we got our sanding and got our grout coat off. Everything looks really nice. You could see the little pinholes and why we grouted it. And once you seal that, that will become really close to the same color where you won't see it. But I would rather have more of a seamless surface than little pinholes everywhere. It's the same thing here on the front. You can really see where the patches took in the pinholes, but once again, once we put that water-based urethane, you'll never tell. So Bub has sanded this, cleaned it. We got back down to our first original face coat that we put on and got all the grout cut off. And Bub has kind of lightly sanded other spots, and now what we have here is the super blue. I would say that's probably 5 or 6 parts water to 1 part super blue. So he's got a stiff brush here, made sure it was really clean, and he's just gonna dip that in and just cover the whole surface as quickly as he can, and then start sponging it in. So you can see it fizzing like that. You see that fizz. So what that's doing is getting off any residual dust or haze that may be left on there. And it's also going to help even out the color in our patches. So yeah, he's going to just keep coating that on there and then start pressing down pretty hard and scrubbing it once he gets an even coat. And he's going to do this face, which will be the front of the countertop, which we'll see. And then also you will see part of this edge out here. and then a part of this edge, because there'll be big cabinets that butt up against that. You may see a foot of that or so, but he's just gonna hit the whole thing. Then we're just gonna hit it with some water and clean it really good. Make sure we get all that super glue off of there. Just gotta wait for it to dry really good. And then we'll be able to put our water-based urethane on top of that, hopefully tomorrow, because these have to be installed by Monday. I have my part A, as it says, shake well, which I've already really done. I'm gonna pour my part A in. The last little bit in there, I'm gonna put the lid back on just to shake it one more time. Make sure there's nothing left on the bottom. Now I'm gonna pour my part B. Part A and part B in there, and now it says to mix for 1 minute. All right, so the next part is we added our 72 ounces of water in here. We mixed it a little bit more, and now we're gonna add this to our chape and pump up sprayer. So I got a funnel. Obviously I made sure it's clean. I don't want a bunch of shit in there. So now I'm just gonna pour this into here. What we're gonna do is flood this top really good, and we just want to saturate this. I'm going to get the backside, even though you'll never see it, because what happens is that if the backside and the edges is what dries up first, and on this first coat, it's kind of like a primer coat. You really want to flood the surface and get this stuff to drive down into the concrete. This isn't a superficial coating. It's not meant to be right on the top. This stuff is supposed to be penetrating and to go all the way down into the concrete. And then by the third or fourth coat, then you will be layered up to where it's penetrated down in the concrete. And then you'll end up just putting another couple coats on top of that. But this first coat, we really just want to wet it out and make sure that it's plenty wet and starts absorbing in the concrete. You can see that edge starting to dry over there. That always happens, so you want to just keep that edge wet and keep soaking that in there. All right, we got our first primer flood coat down. I rolled this probably, say, 4 times, maybe 5, but just until I didn't have any bad noticeable lines. If you have some little faint lines, it's not a big deal. You just don't want any like thick streaking lines, especially on this first prime coat. But overall, it looks pretty good, and it still has a sheen to it right now, but that's because it's still drying. But I'm gonna give it about an hour, and we'll put another coat on. Okay, we got our second coat on. It's been probably an hour and a half since that's been on. It is dry, so I'm about ready to mix that urethane back up, and we will put our third coat on. So far, so good. It's been about 20 hours since we put our last coat of water-based urethane. So there's 4 coats of matte water-based urethane on here. Everything dried out really nicely. All right, we got this thing in here the best we can. We got it sitting on foam. We've got foam wedged behind here because that top wanted to touch right there. So we have foam all the way. You can't even see it all, but it's all the way in the back, so that way there's no pressure as we go down the road. We got a seat belt on it. And then this angle right here, we found a wedge of foam that fits right up under there. Wedged it up as well. So this thing is about as secure as we can get it. We do not want to have issues. This is the scariest part with transportation, is you never know what's going to happen. This right here is probably one of the worst spots over to this right side. When you drive up here normal, it's just like bouncing all over the place. And it sucks you can't see it, but I'm about to go through some bad ups and downs right now. All right, go ahead and pull that off. Nice. Now look, this is the front, so we'll have to put this against the wall. So just figure that out when you get in there. So this is where we're going into. This is an MC Butler construction build. And so the guys are gonna come up these steps. That one is pretty light work compared to that sink, so we're gonna put this right here and see if we need to make any adjustments with shims or anything at all. Help him, bub.
Watch your corner of your right hand's got to go all the way back to the leg. Yeah. Don't shut. Yeah.
Set it down real nice and hope to God that I did that template right.
Hold on, it's got
It's got to go right over the top.
twist. Hold on.
I have to cut some of this tile out.
Hold on.
He's already planning on it. Just get it over as far as you can.
Quarter inch.
And it's got a right here. Look,
It's got a twist.
that's actually pretty. When the sink goes against it, I mean, all in all, see, we already knew this was angled. Remember, that's why I had that template sticking out.
Yeah.
So there's a gap there because this isn't square with the wall. But all in all, it slides right up under that tile. This will have to be cut a little bit right there. But yeah, it looks nice, man. It looks nice. It's got the turn down edge where you don't see it. We may have to shift that back off a little bit.
Yeah. Here, ready?
Push it this. Yep.
Right there?
Yep. Right there. Yep. I think it's good. Yeah, it looks nice in here, man. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Hopefully you learned some new techniques, and let us know in the comment section what you would do differently or what you would like to see us do next. And we appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.